Hi, everybody. Welcome. Welcome for our new webinar for today, the new standard in cloud security, email protection plus XDR. Today, we have Alessia Klevchuk presenting, who is our Director of Product Marketing, along with Yaz Bekar, who is a Principal Consulting Architect. Before I let these two take it away, I do have a couple of housekeeping items. So this webinar is being recorded. You will receive a copy of the recording along with some important resources that they detail during the presentation. Second, we do encourage audience participation. So at the bottom of your screen, you will see a question mark with a box around it. That is for Q&A. We are live. They are experts. They would love to have your questions. And we also have reactions. So you can clap, you can give a thumbs up, you can give a heart. Whatever your heart desires, we will be able to see it, and we appreciate the feedback. And that is it for me. Alessia, Yaz, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Ali. Welcome, everyone. So today, over the next 30-40 minutes, Yaz and myself will take you through what we believe to be is the new standard in cloud security. So most of you already have, probably every single one of you already has email protection. Some of you are probably using XDR. So how do we combine it together, and why would we want to do that? What are the benefits? What we've seen at Barracuda make difference to our customers. So we'll go through all of those topics and more as well. So keep your questions coming throughout. We will take questions at the end of the presentation. Any questions you have, please. We have good experts here. So let's get started. Let's get started by looking at the email. So email, it's not surprising, number one email threat vector. The reason why email is so simple and why it remains the number one threat vector is because everybody's using email. Anybody has access to email, anybody can send an email. And it's not a threat vector that will go away. It's something that will stay with us as long as we in the business world continue to use email. And as email evolves, so will the threats. Today we see 1 in 4 emails that are being received by our customers are either malicious or unwanted. So you can see this if you do nothing. That's a lot of risk being introduced to your organizations. I'm sure you are not doing nothing. I'm sure you are filtering your email and trying to stop all of these attacks. But what we also been seeing is that attacks are scaling up. So there's more attacks that are out there. It's a lot easier for hackers to create new type of email attacks because of AI tools available to them, and because of phishing as a service kind of attacks, packages, and toolkits being available to hackers and cyber criminals to exploit. The tactics are also changing. We're seeing a lot more a lot more attachments, malicious URLs being used. They really are changing and kind of combining different types of threats into a single one to avoid detection and avoid all the email filters that you have. So the question is, are you able to keep up with all of these? I want to walk you through some of the examples of what we're seeing in terms of some of the latest threats, some of the newer tactics. One of the things I've mentioned already is an increased use of malicious URLs. We're seeing a lot of phishing as a service kits being used. This is an example of a tycoon for phishing as a service kit that is using URL encoding, and we see all sorts of different things being done to the URLs to really avoid detections by filters and URL scanners. They will insert odd characters, they will insert spaces, they will return @signs, which kind of confuses a lot of the filters that kind of feel that this is not a URL, but what's before @sign is not something that is part of the URL. They're also starting to insert fake verification kind of stage using captures. They're not real, but it's a social engineering tactics that makes the victims believe that this is actually part of a real sign-in process, or something is very real because you need to go through this verification stage. So you can see right here is an example of Microsoft being impersonated. If you click on this link, it will take you to a place that will look to get users to sign in, disclose the sign-in credentials. So the next one we're seeing quite a lot of is the QR codes, and the QR code's been around for a while. They've been a big pain for a lot of security teams, and they have evolved too. It's no longer just a simple QR code. So here's an example again: somebody impersonating Microsoft, and it's asking you to authenticate your account, but it's not a single QR code. It's actually a split QR code into two parts. The scanner see it as a distinct and benign image rather than a QR code. So here's another tactics they're trying to avoid detection. Another example, also Microsoft, and this is also part of phishing as a service kit. It's a QR code embedded within the QR code. Sometimes the inside the QR code is fake or a bad malicious one. Sometimes it's the outer one. In this particular example, the QR code is embedded within the legitimate QR code. So the outer QR code, sorry, it's actually leading to the malicious site, a phishing site, and the inner QR code points to Google. So you can see how it's trying to confuse security vendors into identifying this as a malicious attack. So one thing that was in common between all three of those things is that they all target Microsoft 365. This is probably one of the most common phishing attacks that we're seeing, is when hackers are targeting Microsoft 365 accounts for one specific thing, login details. In fact, Microsoft themselves are saying that their accounts are being attacked 4,000 times per second. That's how much risk is associated with those accounts. We see a lot of attacks, QR codes, links, attachments, social engineering attacks that being targeted at Microsoft trying to steal the login credentials. So with that, I have a first of our 3 poll questions that we're going to have today. So let's load this up. So I want to know, when you think about the Microsoft 365 environment and the security that you have with them today, what is your biggest challenge when it comes to Microsoft 365 security? Is it keeping up with the evolving attack tactics, maybe some of those that I've shared, maybe some different ones? Alert fatigue, missed incidents, lack of integration across different cloud services that you have. Maybe you have a limited IT resources, maybe none of the above. If you don't use Microsoft 365, we've got a response option for you. So you might have a challenge with all of them. I can see how every team, every department, every security team has a bit of a challenge with every single one of them. But I want you to think of the biggest one, the biggest challenge. Yes, what do you think organizations are struggling the most with today?
Well, I think that's most there is a lot of limited IT resources, so there is clearly lack of talent, and it's quite difficult to build custom detection nowadays and keep track of all types of new attacks that are appearing on daily basis. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And if you have limited IT resources, you can keep up with evolving landscape. You probably can keep up with all the alerts. So it comes from that. Well, 11% of you think that limited resources are as biggest challenge for you. There's also half of you are keeping up with evolving attack tactics, and I can appreciate that because as we develop our security tools, hackers are also developing the tactics, and keeping up with them could be a real challenge. Okay, so why Microsoft? Why are hackers targeting this? So malicious email is coming in, and they are able to phish for those credentials. And what happens after that is that it gives them access to the entire ecosystem of your environment, of your organization. They compromise access, they have the keys to all of the different Microsoft 365 application. They can go ahead and steal data. They can encrypt that data that is stored in all the different places. They have access to your communication and collaboration tools. They can use those to further spread laterally within the organization to look to penetrate a more privileged type of accounts that might have access to more sensitive infrastructure, more sensitive data. So it allows them access and moving around. That's why those login information and credentials are so important and so precious. And of course, like once you're faced with all this attacks and challenges, you also, on the other hand, all have business challenges. And we've touched on this earlier around limited IT resources. And what we hear from our customers is for most organizations, cybersecurity comes down to really a few challenges that are listed here. It's the first one is probably the most important one, is the lack or limited number of talent or technology in place that leads to slow response time. And the lengthier that response time is, the more time cyber criminals have to stay in your environment, to learn about your environment, to do what they want to do there, move laterally. It also kind of gets that attack becomes bigger, it becomes more expensive. There's also a lot of organizations have a very large number of cybersecurity tools that they are trying to manage. We see organizations using up to 80 security tools, email protection, firewall logs, endpoint security, you name it. And all of that it exists in these disparate systems that lacks integrations, that lacks common visibility. And you want to bring them together into the centralized dashboard that provides the single view, so you can understand the risk and you can understand the threats that you are facing across all of the tools and across all of the threat vectors. And because you have so many tools and because they all talk at you at once, there is a real alert fatigue. And there's a lot of false positives, right? So you have something that seems to be malicious in one tool, but does not seem to be malicious in the other tool. And then finally, everything, there's a lot of regulation, there's a lot of compliance requirements that organizations are facing. So you need to be able to comply with those, and especially now in the new world of AI, I think those regulations and compliance requirements are only growing for all organizations across all industries. Okay, so how can Barracuda improve the situation? What can we do to help? Well, the first and foremost, at Barracuda, we are on the path to help you to consolidate all of your tools and all of your security to a single platform. We have launched the Barracuda One platform that helps organizations to make prevention, detection and response to security attacks more effective, to improve your cyber resiliency overall. So the components of our cyber resiliency platform, they start with the prevention and the email protections, because a lot of those attacks are coming through the email. You also want to have a greater detection and response tools that go beyond your current manual or semi-automatic processes that you have. You want the response to be kind of at the right time in real time. Implementing zero trust strategy to make sure that it's focusing on protecting that access for organizations. We're not going to go into too much detail around zero trust strategy, but we will focus on email protection, on how we deliver the detection and response, and then we will spend a little bit of time talking about the recovery. If things were to get through, if attack were to unfold, how can you use Barracuda platform to help you recover faster? Okay, well, let's start with the prevention side of things. When it comes to the email security, you don't want to just filter emails. The email security today, as attacks are evolving, just filtering email is almost not enough anymore. You do need to have this multi-layered approach against modern day threats. And you need to also remember that prevention of the attacks will only take you so far. It will help you to prevent, let's say, 99.9% of the attacks. But what happens to that 0.1% of attacks when it gets through? What you need to have in place is ability to identify those attacks post-delivery as quickly as possible and remediate them within seconds or minutes rather than hours and days. And of course, like a lot of organizations today, especially with smaller teams, with a lack of resources, you have these small teams. They are focused on 9 to 5 jobs, and trying to manage security 24/7 can also be challenging for organizations and adds additional layers of security. So your email security, definitely the pre-delivery threat detection and response, but you don't want to stop there. When attacks get through, how do you automate your incident response? You need to have email authentication in place. You need to be able to identify the account takeover, the compromised accounts in time, and you do need to build a good security awareness within the organization as the last layer of defense. Okay, let's roll up the second poll question, and let's talk a little bit more about detection and response. So I want you to think about the times when security incidents did happen, and it might have been as a result of an email attack or an account compromise. Just think of an average security incident that had happened, maybe the last one. How long does it typically take you to both detect and respond to those security incidents? You're really fast, maybe less than an hour, 1 to 4 hours, 4 to 24, or more than 24. Or maybe you're not sure. So pick it up. And I'm sure it depends on the scope of the attack. Some attacks will take just a couple of minutes to respond to and identify, and especially if you have the right set of tools. And others can be there for months before you identify, and then it will take days, weeks, and sometimes also months to recover from them. Okay. So 23% of you takes less than an hour, so it sounds like you have a good response strategy in place. Some of you want 4 hours and 4 to 24, and there's a significant number of you that takes, or almost 9% of you say more than 24 hours. When we look at incidents that are currently within that our customers are facing, we see a lot of incidents and a lot of threats that are lingering around and not being identified or remediated well past 24 hours. And I think those are the ones that cause the most damage. What do you think, Yas?
Absolutely. I mean, like based on some statistics, the detection is the longest to fund, because some stats are saying that it's taking for an average business around 190 days to detect new types of attacks on their environment. So yeah, detection is really crucial, as well as the visibility.
So let's take a look at the actual example of one of the attacks that's happened. This is based on a real attack that Barracuda worked on with a customer, and how things have been unfolding. So a very typical scenario: phishing email was delivered to an employee mailbox. Seconds later, employee looked at the email, clicked the link, logged in with their Microsoft 365 credentials. Attackers have that information. They have captured, they know where access is. They were able to use that access to log into Microsoft 365 environment. At the same time, it didn't take them too long, but to find a lot of time, attackers don't act right away. They actually do a lot of reconnaissance, especially those attackers that are looking to create the most amount of damage and monetize the most on the efforts. In this particular case, the attacker created inbox rules to hide their activity, to filter data, so that their activities will not be seen by a security team. So there was an activity triggered the security alert. Email protection did its job, and it says, look, somebody's logging in from an unusual location, an unusual device, and we're also detecting some unusual rule activity. You might want to go and check this out. Unfortunately, there was a very critical oversight by an extremely overworked IT administrator, which I'm sure you've all faced before as well. You get an alert, it's one of 15,000 alerts that you've received this morning, and you need to prioritize and triage, and something fell through the cracks. You didn't notice it. Days later, the attacker uses the mailboxes to send phishing campaigns to suppliers, to customers. They're impersonating the organization. So it's only days and days later that the phishing campaign was detected. And of course, the cleanup process has started. So this is one of the scenarios where the attack was remediated, but after some damage was already done. And I have another poll question for you. So I want you to think about a time when this might have happened to you, or especially around how you deal with attacks that might happen outside of business hours, right? So how does the organization typically respond to security threats or security alerts that occur outside of your regular hours, outside of 9 to 5, or maybe like nights, weekends, holidays? Think about all of those times when you might not have a full attention of your security team. So you might have a 24/7 in-house security coverage through the SOC team, or you just work in a global organization that works around the cloak. Maybe you rely on some automated detection and response tools that lock things out based on alerts automatically while you sleep. Maybe you have some on-call team for various critical incidents. Maybe you address your threats the next day, or I'm not sure what you do. So I'll be interested to know what kind of coverage you have for outside of hours. And I want you to think about those scenarios in terms of what kind of risks being introduced outside of regular work hours. Okay, let's take a look. Okay, so a lot of you are relying on automated detection and response tools. I also want to point out that nobody, or not nobody, 6% of you, almost nobody, has a 24/7 in-house security coverage. And that's probably the most optimal way to deal with things, having a 24/7 SOC team. There is also a third of you that rely either on call teams, or it just has to wait until the next morning. So a lot of kind of gaps and risks being introduced. So let's see how the real world example, if you were to have, in the example that we've just looked at, cloud XDR on the top to help you manage this. So again, the attack progressed the same way. Phishing attack started, employee clicks on the link, hacker has access to the credentials. Almost in real time, the managed cloud XDR solution kicks in, and our automated threat response detects anomalies and it suspends the account. This is done. This is done automatically as soon as we see enough triggers to disable the account. We plug in directly into Microsoft 365 environment. We do the same with Google Workspace, and we disable we disable and suspend the account. At the same time, IT departments are alerted by our 24/7 SOC team that an activity that this has taken place, and your overstretched IT team is free to focus on whatever tasks they need to do. It takes around 30 seconds for us to identify, or less than 30 seconds for us to identify and disable user accounts. So you can see that we have taken the time to detection and response from days and minutes, because it was relying on a human to act and review the alerts, to down to 30 seconds, and we supported all of that with that 24/7 security SOC coverage that 94% of you are missing today. Okay, so why do you need both? Why do you need both the email protection and XDR cloud security? Can I just have one of those and be done with that? Well, you could, but you're leaving gaps in your security. They really do complement each other, and we built integrations for them to work especially to address the cloud compromise situations. So the first one is the email protection. It's definitely prevents all of that credential risk. We looked at the email attacks, impossible travel. Somebody's logging in from California, New York within 5 minutes. Well, that's impossible. We're going to lock this account, or we're going to alert about this account, other suspicious logins, suspicious rule changes, and so many other things like abnormal behaviors of the account. Well, what Manage XDR does, it takes it a step further. So it doesn't focus just on the email and inbox type of activities, but it looks at how kind of a broader ecosystem. Is there any unusual Microsoft Teams activities, for example? Was there any modification to your DLP policies? Are there a mass file deletion that is going on? So it's looking at, it complements these alerts with an additional data that it's pulled from other sources. And of course, it adds this automated remediation and a response that is so critical. So the one thing I've touched on is going beyond Microsoft 365 integrations. We spend a lot of time talking about Microsoft, but if you're using any of these applications, the same logic will apply to all of these as well. Google Workspace, Duo, Okta, Amazon Web Services. And of course, at the end, if your data were to be damaged or encrypted, or if you did not react in time, the attack was that sophisticated that you weren't able to, the most valuable thing that you have within the organization is data. And at Barracuda, we recognize that, and we want to make sure that your data is protected. And this is where a cloud-to-cloud backup comes in to help you back up and restore all of the data that might have been deleted, whether due to various malicious reasons or accidental deletion by your employees. All right. So at this point, I'm going to stop and I'm going to pass it over to Yaz, who has a lot of cool things to show you based on what we've just covered.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So I'm going to share my screen. And let's start with a simple demonstration here of a threat simulation. So on that example, we have a threat actor, which one is using a Kali Linux machine and is using a hacking tool here to create what we call a lure, or basically a phishing link. So we can see here, indeed, the phishing link is a fake one. It's called Office 356, quite confusing, isn't it? And then basically sending it to the victim. So the victim received the email. So I remind you that there are multiple ways how to deliver an email. So they could use like an advanced IP cloaking, for example. However, now the victim received that email and is going to click on the link that is in there. So it's opening obviously a page. Again, this is a fake page. And we can see that it's quite similar to Microsoft 365 login page. So the victim here is entering his username and password. So in that example is Jack. And entering the credentials. The user here have MFA enabled as well. So it's going to request him to enter an MFA on his mobile device. Once he enters it, the session will be intercepted by the threat actors. So if we go back on the hacking tool view, so we can see that indeed the authorization token has been ingested. But also the credentials. If we take a look at sessions, we can see username and password in there. But those are not anymore necessary. The reason behind it is that the user or the victim is having an MFA in place. So in fact, the threat actor does not need credentials at all. So what they need is the user session. And in that case, there is a cookie session, which one has been ingested. And we can see here in session 2, there is that authorization token, which one will be at some stage copied. So the threat actor will copy that authorization token. And simply through the browser, they can go to the official page of Microsoft 365 and using just a simple cookie editor to import that authorization token. So in here, they can just simply paste that cookie session, and they can just simply reload the page. They don't need to enter credentials at all. So after refreshing the page, they have instantly access to the user account. As we can see in here, so this is indeed the account of Jack. Now, this is exactly at that stage where there is a powerful algorithm that is going to be activated from side of Barracuda. The algorithm is going to look, is that behavior usual or is there an anomaly? Is that really that user or is it someone else? So there is a session monitoring, and we can go a little bit further. That threat actor is going to create or to, I would say, upload a ransomware. Their goal is maybe to spread ransomware across all the environment. So maybe user will find those files and they will download them and double click on them. However, we blocked or deactivated the account. So we can see on the XDR dashboard that there is an impossible travel. So there are 2 existing sessions with a distance of 1000 kilometers and with 2 different devices. Now also there is another alert, which one is mentioning that there is a malware uploaded into OneDrive. So as you can see, we are not alerting only on the identity, but also we are alerting you about a malware upload into the cloud. And finally, there is a confirmation, or I would say a notification. Sorry for that. I'll just go back to show that notification in here, which is in here. So there is a notification or confirmation saying that, hey guys, we have noticed that there is an anomaly, there is an impossible travel, and there is an unusual behavior. Basically, the threat actor uploaded a ransomware. So we took action and we deactivated the account. Within that alert, you are getting a full detail, also a score of the threat intel from multiple different sources as well, and some recommendations what you need to do. So if that situation happened actually at 3 a.m. in morning, you can sleep quietly because the XDR is very much proactive and is going to take actions and deactivate the account of the user. You can, in morning, you can go back to your office and find that actually there is a user that is deactivated, and you can find all the details within that alert. And actually, I have here one of those hacking tools servers. So I have a server that is sitting somewhere, and we can see here I have multiple fishlets. So I could impersonate Microsoft 365, but also they could impersonate anything else. So they could impersonate, for example, PayPal or Amazon or GitHub. And of course, the threat actors are having possibility to create a customized fishlet. So even if your target is not in here, and maybe you would like to impersonate another website login, so you could create it here very much customized. And if we take a look at here on a sandboxed environment that I have, so this is here how this looks like the link, and even if I copy it and paste it in here, it will exactly load looking like Microsoft 365. So you need really to be very careful. Always pay attention to what is written in here. Is it really Microsoft or it is not? Yeah, that was it from my side. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Yaz. This was very interesting. Hopefully you got to see what it actually looks like in reality. It makes it a little bit more real for you. There were a couple of questions, Yaz, as you were doing your presentation. One was at the very beginning, and I think it was it's asking, wouldn't Barracuda potentially block the URL though? So you'd never need to get to the rest of your demo.
So there is no 100%. It doesn't exist, whether Barracuda or any other vendor. It simply doesn't exist. Now, The threat landscape is evolving. There are always new type of attacks, right? And Barracuda is we are always doing our best to be up to date and to release new types of detections and new preventions, right? But we never know. As I mentioned, there are some advanced attacks that could use really, I would say, a high authority domain, for example, and use an IP clocking system. So eventually, it could deliver the emails. In that case, it is really from best practices to have an email security and the cloud security that is fully managed by the SOC.
It's great. What about if the perpetrator works within an organization? Are hospital systems ensuring that emails such as my charts are legitimate and secure?
Always. So we take in consideration that the threat could be external as well, could be internal. And we have seen some situations where actually the threat was one of the employees. So we are ready for that.
Great. Keep those questions coming. I think I have a couple of other questions here. What does the deployment look like? I don't have a big IT team. I can handle this for the email protection side, and then Yas can tell you what it looks like on XDR. Email protection deployment is incredibly easy. We offer a flexible deployment options. It depends on what works best for your organization. Deployment takes about 5 minutes. It's a wizard of 6 steps. It might take a little longer if you choose to change your MX records. You don't have to. We do offer an inline deployment options as well. And there are components that integrate with your Microsoft 365 via APIs. We also, for all new customers, we do offer a free onboarding services as well. So we have a very easy onboarding wizard, takes a few minutes, and then you will also have somebody to walk you through that anyway. So super easy, very fast.
Yeah, and from the side of XDR email security, so Olesha mentioned about 6 minutes. So from the XDR side, it's going to take 10 minutes. So you have here 16 minutes to have a full deployment of email security and XDR cloud security. So it's actually a simple API integration. So very straightforward.
Yep. Does managed mean the SOC is managing this? Can you talk more about the SOC, what SOC is and the role in all of this?
Yeah, so we are level 5 innovative SOC. So the SOC is managing the SIEM. The SOC is updating the rules and updating the II detection. So this is fully managed by the SOC. Now you receive the alerts, obviously. So we are monitoring. You receive the alerts and you receive some recommendations that you need to apply. But from side of detection, you can be assured that our SOC will handle everything what is about detection.
Okay. There's a great question from Christine here. How does the XDR disabling of account works if your user accounts are on-prem? And we are in a hybrid environment, so we're not fully in the cloud. We still use Active Directory and use a server to sync our AD with Azure Ad Tenant.
Well, we are ready to make some workaround. I mean, like some maybe delayed synchronizations, especially in nights, for example. In that case, when we deactivate an account, it stays deactivated at the level of Microsoft 365. You receive the alert within maximum 20 minutes because this is a high severity alert. And then you are aware about what is going on. And it is also good to mention that with our high severity alert, there is also a phone call from the SOC team. So we are actually deactivating the account, but in some situations, we are also calling you and informing you about the situation.
This is a great question from Rob. How does Barracuda and XDR possibly stop an internal phishing where the email recipient and sender are the same email address to the user? This is great. So you're talking about the inside the threat, and you're absolutely right. If you are relying just on the traditional gateways, they only see things that are coming from outside the organization, and they see that the perimeter security of your organization. What we are talking also about here is that you need to add those additional layers, and at Barracuda, both XDR and email protection sees your communications inside, because we are able to integrate through APIs with, for example, Microsoft 365 environment. So we see emails as they're coming in from external senders as well as the internal senders, because yes, inside the risk is very big. And if there are any malicious messages, content, phishing attacks are being sent from compromised accounts, or you just have a malicious actor inside, disgruntled employee, we see that, and all the same rules apply. Yes, I don't know if you want to add something to that.
No, you're absolutely spot on. So we are using the Microsoft 365 API. So even if someone is going to do an account takeover, even internally, this is still a different device. So through the logs, the SOC will notice it, and we are going to proactively inform you about it.
Vashi has a good question for you. Yes, he's asking you to talk about the fixes once the detention is dealt with. So I'm assuming this detection is dealt with. Do this require technical skills or on the end user side?
This is a really good question. So we go under assumption that our customers might not have a technical skills. So therefore, we have an assistance, unlimited assistance from the SOC. So for example, you receive the alert. You are not sure how to remediate while you're not really technical. So you can just simply call the SOC and ask them, hey guys, can you please assist me? I received the alert, and I need someone to guide me through that so that I can remediate, or I can maybe enhance my security on Microsoft 365. So they will be more than happy to help you. So as I mentioned, unlimited assistance.
Luke is asking if subscription is based on user count. Yes, we base it on the number of users you have, and usually if you are a Microsoft 365 company, we usually tie it to those. Andrea, I see a question from you, but I don't quite understand this. You're asking if the telephone calls from Barracuda are secure. Maybe I'm missing something. If you can rephrase that, we can tackle it again.
So yeah, I think that I understand the question. So yes, so all the communication from the SOC is always secure. So there will be always the same number, which one will be calling you. You will be receiving that call. They will introduce themselves, and also in the same time you are receiving a notification by email that there is an alert. So you will know that there is something going wrong.
Okay, great. Yes, understood your question. Good. All right. Well, it sounds like these are all the questions I had. Those are great questions. I'm glad you were so engaged. If there's any other questions that you have, reach out to us. We'll be happy to dive into this in a bit more detail.
All right. Thank you both. There was one more question that just came in. Is that something that we can answer?
It's asking for a pricing. Yes, I see Bashi asking for a pricing. I think this is a good question to maybe follow up with you on rather than discussing here. It really does depends on what we're looking for. But yes, of course, we have a pricing for you to share with you.
Thanks for asking, Bashi. All right. Thank you to everyone with great questions. You had fabulous questions, and special thank you to both you, Alessia and Yaz, for your wonderful presentation. Just a reminder to all attendants, you will receive a copy of this webinar in the recording, and you'll get some important resources from me in an email tomorrow morning. All right. Thank you, everybody. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.